What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the altar again, and this time we are here with great to be able to talk with you. We are here with Anthony and Lynn. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. It's actually an honor. As I said before, your newest album, One, is one of my personal favorite releases of 2022. What was the sort of thought process behind the making of this album? Was there sort of like a preconceived vision in a way, or was this a very experimental and improvisational process?
Well, it was a little bit of both actually. The album actually started as there was four songs written originally that I myself, Jing, the guitarist, and Chris, the bass player, we had four songs, and Lynn had actually joined up later on. So originally the project was the three of us, but there was vocal melodies already written, and a lot of the melodies were written, pretty high, so we knew we wanted a female vocalist, and we had contacted some mutual friends of ours, in search of a vocalist. And actually, we got kind of lucky because basically Lynn was the first person who came, who demoed the first four songs. The first four songs actually on the album that were originally written were Dark, Light, Travel, and I believe it was what was the fourth one? Dark, Light, Travel,
Mountain?
and no, not Mountain. Mountain was actually the last song written, believe it or not.
All right.
Yeah. Oh shit. What was the? Anyway, there was the four songs written, and basically what happened was I had Lynn come in, and the original plan was just to do demo stuff. She hadn't written the lyrics yet, but all the vocal melodies were written on like a just like a MIDI piano sound, and we just kind of slowly went through it, and I just had her listen to the melodies and just record, just vocal melodies without lyrics yet.
Mm-hmm.
And we just experimented with different timbres and approaches to the vocal lines, and the way she was approaching it just blew me away, and it exceeded my expectations and how I perceived everything to begin with, and that was basically it. And after the first four songs were completed, we knew that there was something really special here, and we knew that we needed, a four-song we didn't want to make it a demo. We knew that it was worthy of making this thing into an album. So then we wrote four more songs, and it was the same process. I just wrote. We wrote the vocal melodies on the just like a MIDI kind of piano sound during the composition process, and it was the same thing. And then we had Lynn come in, and this time the subsequent four songs, she had already prepared the lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
She basically she wrote all the lyrics to the songs, which obviously you probably know are in Chinese.
Yeah.
And that was it. And it just the whole thing kind of blew our minds because we didn't go into this knowing exactly how it was going to come out. We really had to, because a lot of the music, it's I think we created something that's kind of unique, which is really hard to do nowadays, with so much music out there, and but I really believe this album is something that's different, but at the same time it maintains a lot of familiarity that people can really get into. I mean, there's a lot of melodicism to the music, and even though there's a lot of it might come across as complicated at times, but actually I believe there's like a thread of the utmost simplicity throughout the whole album. Maybe even melodically, it's very melodic, and it's there's a lot of harmony, and I mean we kind of waded through a lot of uncharted territory, doing this album. So we really had to figure out a lot of stuff as we were going through it. But the whole process, believe it or not, was pretty organic. Nothing was ever really forced. And I think the end result just kind of took us by surprise, to be honest. Like we didn't expect that it was going to come out the way it did. But you know, we just followed our hearts and our intuition from beginning to end. And as we speak now, we're working on the second album. Actually, I'm with Lynn. We're in our little studio right now. We were just laying down vocal tracks for the album 2, which is coming out, you know, hopefully next year.
Wow.
And yeah, it's coming out amazing. And yeah, that's basically how the first album, you know, compositionally and recording came about.
Lynn, for the lyrics that were incorporated in here, was this like based off an emotion that you were feeling when you first heard the material, or was this were you expressing concepts that you've always wanted to express, or did the lyrics just come when you first heard the music? Basically, how did you come up with the lyrics? Could maybe a lyrical idea help influence the direction of the song too?
So 他在问你，就是他在问你，就是你写的那个歌词是你提前有了一些想法就想表达出来，还是就是随着这个过程你写的那个词就是那个什么自然而然出来的，或者怎么样？你这个歌词是怎么写的？
歌词就是，在这些有了这个最初的你给了一些框架之后，然后我是有感而发，看到你写的，然后给了我一些灵感，我再去写。
Yeah, basically the lyrics were, a lot of them were actually inspired just by the content of the melodies. It just triggered some inspiration and ideas that gave rise to the lyrics. So it wasn't so much as like she had these preconceived like concepts that she wanted to write about. It was more just like in step with the whole composition and process of creating it that the lyrics kind of came about. Mm-hmm. But yeah, in answer to your second question, the music composition was pretty much all completed, including the vocal melodies. So the lyrics themselves didn't so much like inform where the music was going compositionally, because all of it was already pretty much completed. But for sure, like after she, you know, wrote the lyrics and, you know, added the vocal lines and everything, it definitely took everything to another level.
Rhythmically too, I think the rhythm that's incorporated in here is also like really impressive. To me, that's one of the most original aspects. This album always, even when I kind of had an idea of the vibe, it always kept me like surprised each song, and every passing listen I always discover something new. When it came to the rhythmic melodies, like for you, Anthony, were you like thinking like how, I guess for lack of better questions, was it almost like really difficult to keep up with the rhythm because it changes so much throughout it? Like, did you prefer to have music before you laid down your parts in a way in order to know what was coming up, or did ideas just kind of like keep coming to fruition?
Well, a lot of like I said, like all the composition aspects of it were completed before the recording process. So everything was pretty much, the design was already in place. And then it was just a matter of just making it happen, you know, just going into the studio and laying down the drum tracks and all the other parts. You know, there was a lot of, making the album was definitely very challenging from a performance aspect, you know what I mean? Because there are a lot of, you know, complicated rhythmic elements, but there was never, not for a second, was there any notion of making complicated for the sake of complicated. You know what I mean? It really, everything was just, it came from, you know, as much as we could, it came from a very, you know, pure place and organic kind of, you know, writing process. It wasn't, nothing was forced, you know, it wasn't like, oh, let's make these very syncopated, crazy rhythms just for the sake of making them. Everything came from, you know, in service of the song and the kind of feeling we wanted to evoke from it. And sometimes that required just like some, you know, quite syncopated rhythms here and there. So yeah, I mean the rhythmic element of it is definitely pretty intense at times. I mean, even the song Mountain, if you don't, you know, you don't hear it with the metronome, but if you hear it with the metronome going, I mean, it's pretty intense. The syncopations, especially in the verses and the way Lynn had to really, she doesn't really come from this kind of background of music. She comes from more pop background. So she was kind of dealt with a lot of challenges, especially rhythmically, but she handled it amazing. And as we've been rehearsing, just we're hoping in the not too distant future we can finally get this thing going live. It's all coming together. And yeah, I mean, it's like the rhythm was basically. I'm a drummer, so I mean, I had a pretty active role in the composition process. So I have a lot of rhythmic ideas and things like that. So that stuff kind of just came out naturally. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the rhythm, it was never forced to make it complicated for the sake of complicated. And at times it's not as complicated as it maybe sounds here in time, in some places.
Coming from the drummer of the band, I showed this album to many of my friends, and they're saying they were getting arthritis just listening to the drums in itself because I was on there. And you mentioned that. You're really right, because I feel like it flows so perfectly. Like Travel leads perfectly into Farewell, which leads perfectly into Mountain, which leads perfectly into Ghost, etc. The next question I have is also for Lynn, because you're working on new music now. Being that this is music that you all made together, and that you all, you're all starting off this songwriting process together. Do you maybe have more of an attachment with this new album in a way, because you all started this writing process together? Is it almost a different mindset with the making of this new album as opposed to one?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. I think the way the new album is coming out so far, I feel like it's very much a natural progression into just an album too. Like when the way the songs are coming about, it's definitely, when you hear it eventually, it's very identifiable that it's us. And the songs aren't a big departure. I don't think they're a huge departure from the first album. There's going to be a lot of common elements. In fact, one of the songs we kind of, it didn't come out. It wasn't like an intentional thing, but the song Mountain, we're actually writing a song called Ocean, which is kind of, it's basically like a continuation. It's almost like a Mountain part 2, but just it has a lot of common themes, and it's almost like a a continuation of that song. And we're hoping in future albums, we kind of have the idea now that with that theme of kind of what do you call that, topography, or mountains, oceans, like these huge how do you say that word?
Topography.
Yeah, topography. Yeah, like it's kind of a theme, but obviously it symbolizes bigger things. So there's that song is going to be on the album, and it's going to be, I think it's going to be something really special. But yeah, no, we really acquired a lot of experience, and we're more sure of like our identities now than because in the first album we were kind of figuring it out as we went along. We didn't know what was going to how exactly this thing was going to come out, and we weren't trying to be like anything. You know what I mean? Even like I guess it mostly fits into like the so-called heavy music genre, and we're totally cool with that. But even that, we were never like, we wanted to be a certain thing. You know what I mean? It just kind of came out. We come from very diverse musical backgrounds, so it kind of just came out as organically as we could. Mm-hmm. But now we kind of have a clear concept of the band's sound and the vibe and all that, you know what I mean? Which is natural, as a band, composes music and makes albums. You kind of develop a sense of identity and what it is that you want to express. So the next album is definitely going to be a very fluid transition from the first album. It's not going to be like, coming from, from a totally different place. You know what I mean? It's going to be a very fluid transition, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lynn, coming from a pop background, actually, how different of a mindset was this? Did you feel like you were expressing a different side of yourself, experimenting with a different genre of music? Did you feel like you were expressing sides of yourself that you never expressed before, or that you never even knew that you had before?
他刚问就是因为你之前你那个玩音乐的那个经验不太有这些重型的东西，我跟他说了，就是你比较流行一点多一些，然后就是有了这个机会，有没有发现就是你可以在这种风格里面的音乐可以表达一些你从来没有想过的一些东西，情绪方面的或者怎么样？
特别多的感受。首先呢，它是让我非常自由的在里面去表达我想到的东西，没有框架，然后呢，东西也比较新潮，让我觉得前所未有。然后再加上我写词，我想到什么就可以写什么，然后包容性特别强，可以在里面游刃有余，游刃有余就特别自由，就我想到什么就说什么，就表达什么，这是我觉得非常好的感受。
She said, yeah, in regards to that question, like a lot, there was a lot of things because like you mentioned, she comes from more of a pop background. So with this kind of new kind of sound and vibe of music, she feels like it was actually a lot more room for freedom than she might have had in like a more of a pop setting. Whatever, she didn't feel like there was any boundaries whatsoever. And it was kind of a situation where she could express herself completely without any restraints whatsoever. It was very free, and gave rise to a lot of different emotions. More how do you say? Yeah, more emotive, and just different colors, and it was just much more layered than what she had been in before. So it was really a great experience for her, and still is, as we're doing the second album. It opened up a lot of doors that she never really knew existed, in terms of just artistic expression. So yeah, I mean, it definitely changed a lot of her concept of music and lyricism and expression.
Yeah, in terms of both lyrics and technical, right? Like it was just like a complete. It was almost kind of like completely relearning how to sing in a way, right?
Yeah, I mean, she definitely has like a lot of innate abilities, but I think what was required in the delivery of the melodic lines and the harmony and everything, I think it pushed her to a new level. Took her to a whole new level.
And I have two more questions. This question could probably be for both of you. Because I consider the music to be fairly experimental, and every instrument stands out. There's things about the vocals that I really like. There's things about the drums that I really like, the guitars and bass that I really just find so astonishing and really intriguing. Does everybody in O need to be on the same page mentally and emotionally and technically when it comes to writing music, or could all of you being in your own worlds and having your different ideas and different backgrounds maybe help enhance the songwriting in a way?
I think the latter is more the case, because and I think just the way we get along, we're all really close friends. The four of us were like a little family, you know what I mean? And we all have like the utmost respect for each other, and would never like force anybody to do anything they were uncomfortable with. When we're talking about music, everybody is very comfortable to work with each other. So I think our different backgrounds is one of our, actually, because not everybody in this band, sorry. Not everybody in this band is from, like, I think from the heavy music background, myself and Jing, the guitar player, are much more, rooted in that. We both come from like heavy music as like the root of our musical upbringing, whereas Lynn is more from the pop background, and Chris, the bass player, he's kind of very all around. He actually never really played too much music of this intensity with, in terms of heaviness. But he comes from like a lot of pop and fusion and funk and experimental music. So, I think for whatever reason, the way the four of us we have a chemistry together. It's not only just musically, but just personally. We all get along really well, and we have fun together and hanging out, and, having dinner and drinking, and all the things people do. But yeah, I think our different backgrounds musically is one of our strengths, and helps also lends to a certain uniqueness in the music.
Definitely. And the final question I have is the most difficult one. I want to get an answer from both of you, because I get a different answer from everybody every time I ask this. How do you know when you're finished with a song?
Okay, I'll ask her in a second. My own, I have from a compositional standpoint, I try to keep the how would you say it, the barometer or whatever, the standard for when it's time to make a decision about something. Because when you're writing, the biggest pressure, the scariest thing about writing is just the unknown, and the fact that you can almost make any decision. And for me, it really just ends when something feels good and it sounds good, and it evokes some kind of emotion to me. And then I think that's it. I'm not going to keep, obviously I could make a million different choices and go this way and go that way and do whatever. But it's easy to dig yourself into a hole that way, and you can kind of make yourself crazy. So for me, it's just as soon as we're writing something and it feels good, you kind of just know it. When something feels good, you know it. And then to me, that's it. And then it's done. Mm-hmm. So like in terms of the completion of a song, it's the same thing. It's like, you kind of just know it when it feels good and you said everything that needs to be said. One thing that was kind of intentional with this album and with the second album as well is like, we wanted to avoid filler, and just there wasn't like a dull moment. You know what I mean? Every second of the music was like very important and integral to the whole thing, where it's like, I listened to a lot of albums that I love, but sometimes there's like moments here and there where it's like, you kind of feel like maybe it's dragging on a little bit, or, the songs we have on this album are also pretty, except for two of them, are pretty concise. They're mostly like 4 or 5 minutes. In fact, the second album, I think most of the songs are in the 4 or 5 minute range. We don't have too many like long epics. And that's not to say I don't like long epics. I mean, I come from a background where it's, I listen to all kinds of music, 20 minutes long, songs 20 minutes long and whatnot. And I love that. But for this album, we really wanted to make, kind of more concise. So for like the completion of a song is as soon as it felt good, it was like, well, now we know it's done. And to be completed, it's like a blessing actually, because, you could go on and on and on and keep making decisions, and, and there could be no end to it. You can kind of make yourself crazy. So that was, for me, that's basically the barometer. And I'll re-ask the question to Lynn. 他就刚问我，就是你什么是？他说就是他每一次做这个采访，他都会问这个事，就是比如说你写的一些作品，什么时候能判断就写完了？你以什么标准来就判断，就是这个曲子就写完了？
你说是歌词吗？
那也许是歌词，或者就一般来说嘛。
你再跟我说一遍，再说一遍。
就是你写曲子作曲，怎么样才能判断就是这曲子就写完了，就不用再写新的内容，就是已经写完了。
怎样去判断？
对。
那我写他的时候，我觉得好像把我想说的暂时就想写这么多，那就写这么多，他就结束了。对，没有想到他什么时候结束或者什么时候开始，就是我要写这个时候，我想到哪我就写到哪，我觉得差不多了就行，就是这样。
Yeah, for Lynn, it's basically even more simpler than me. It's just, she has no preconceived notion of like how it's going to start and how it's going to end. It's just when she said all that needs to be said, and express everything that she feels needed to be expressed, and that's it. It's over. It's done.
Yeah, I like it.
I guess it's just kind of similar to what I said. Just when it feels good, and you kind of when you know it in your intuition and in your gut, like it's done. And yeah, and
Well,
it's.
I like it. The longer answer and the short answer. I love the contrast there. That was perfect. So before we go, I want to thank you both so much for your time. And again, thank you for giving us your amazing music. And I look forward to hearing what's coming next from O. Just before we go, is there any chance you could bring this live to the U.S. one day? We would love to have you here. Please come to the U.S.
Oh God, yeah. I mean that's our dream. To get this to come overseas. We're based in China. You're in New York, right?
Yep.
What are you in the city or?
Yep, the middle of Manhattan. I'm calling from.
Oh no way! I was born in Brooklyn actually.
Oh really?
Yeah. I'm basically New Yorker. I mean I grew up in Jersey, but yeah, I was born in Brooklyn and raised around the New York City area my whole life until I came to China 10 years ago.
Oh wow.
So but yeah, we hope for sure that we'll be there.
Yeah.
We're gonna do everything we can.
We would love to have you here. I will book you if I have to. I will. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. Well, keep in touch, and keep in touch.
Definitely. But thank you so much, everybody. We are here with O. Be sure to check out their album One. New stuff coming very soon. You will never hear anything like this. This is unique. It is amazing. Be sure to check this album out. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.